The judge's gavel struck, sealing my victory. But just as I breathed out, a man in a dark suit knocked on my door, holding a federal subpoena with my name. My hands didn't shake this time. The fight wasn't over, just changing shape. I arrived at Langston's condo holding a pecan praline tart I'd made that morning. The elevator smelled of lemon cleaner and nerves. When the door opened, a wave of air-freshened citrus hit me harder than the February chill. Cressida's voice floated from the kitchen, warm to everyone but me. Her home was all white walls and glass edges, too clean to feel alive. I smiled anyway. "Happy birthday, baby," I said, setting the tart down before anyone could pretend not to see it. "Mom, you shouldn't have," Langston murmured, half a hug already turning toward guests. Nico, my sweet grandson, slipped me a small, "Hey, Grandma." That was my real welcome. Cressida directed the caterer like she was producing a commercial, and my tart was quietly relocated to the overflow table near the hallway. My chair sat closest to the kitchen door, where the servers came and went, I told myself. Pick your battles, Odessa. Keep your powder dry. Dinner began with talk I couldn't join. Marketing jargon dressed up as conversation. I tried a small memory, telling them how Langston once wanted to be a baker at age 8. One woman smiled politely, then turned to her wine. 2 others switched to French, complimenting the centerpiece like I wasn't there. The rhythm was so smooth, I almost admired it. Langston's thin smile begged me not to interrupt. I noted everything quietly. The tone, the timing, the performance. This ain't my first rodeo, I thought. Then came the sting. Cressida leaned toward her friends, her French confident and careless. Campagnard, un geste mignon, mais date, country, a cute, but dated gesture. Laughter flickered down the table. Another added, Elle ne comprend pas, elle fait semblant d'appartenir. She doesn't understand. She pretends to belong. The words slid under my skin like fine glass. My plate arrived last. The waiter asked if I needed help cutting my steak. I laid my fork down and breathed. Nico's eyes met mine, anxious. Langston's knee bounced beneath the table. My late husband's voice surfaced in memory. Let truth be precise, not loud. I measured my breath. Once, twice. Then I looked up and smiled. "Ce n'est pas la langue qui manque ici," I said clearly. "C'est la politesse. What's missing here isn't language, it's courtesy." Silence spread like frost. I continued gently, explaining that the praline tart came from a family recipe older than any of our careers, a sweet born from survival and community kitchens. I corrected a small grammar slip someone had made earlier, smiling just enough to keep it civilized. Then in English, I said, "Y'all, respect isn't a trend. It's table stakes." The glasses froze midair. Someone whispered, "Oh." Nico exhaled. Langston mouthed, "Mom," as if proud and terrified at once. Cressida laughed too high. "How delightful," she said, but her voice cracked. Another guest asked how I'd learned French. "Been around long enough to listen," I replied, folding my napkin back into place. The woman nearest me leaned closer, intrigued. Across the table, another studied Cressida. Recalculating, the balance shifted. I didn't gloat. I just resumed my meal. "Don't chase them," I told myself. "Let them find you wrong." When dessert came, my tart was missing from the spread. I spotted it boxed near the counter, tucked away. I touched Nico's shoulder and whispered, "We'll save the good stuff." His grin said everything. As the evening wound down, Cressida bent toward Langston, murmuring something sharp. He avoided my gaze. I lifted my glass anyway. "To courtesy," I said. She met my toast, her eyes hard as glass. Nico's text came early, short and nervous. "You free after school?" I smiled at the spelling, teen language hiding concern. I typed back, "I'll be nearby." The words felt like a small peace offering. I chose Café Belle Rue, a corner spot I used to share with Henri on quiet Fridays, by habit. I arrived 15 minutes early. If you're on time, you're late. Henri always said. The air smelled of roasted chicory and steamed milk, and the espresso wand hissed like it had secrets. I picked the back table by the window, where I could see the door and the street. I texted Nico. Take your time, sugar, I'm here. Before he could arrive, fate brought in a colder wind. Cressida, flanked by 2 of her co-workers from the PR firm. Her tone carried that fake surprise. Oh, Mrs. Varnell, what a coincidence. She didn't expect me to already be there. That threw her rhythm. She air-kissed near my cheek and steered her group to the table right beside mine. Too close to be polite. "Drinks on me, ladies," she announced loud enough for the room. The barista smiled at them like they owned the place. My order sat forgotten. Even though I'd been first, I watched the clock, counting every small power play. When my flat white finally came, I said softly to myself, "Bless their hearts." They slipped into French again. Unaware, or pretending not to know, I understood. I caught pieces, campagnard chic, grand-mère perdue, and the phrase that chilled me. Elle fait semblant d'être à l'aise ici. She pretends she belongs here. The laughter was delicate, expensive, and cruel. Then one of them mentioned guardianship and capacity, words that landed heavy. I didn't flinch. I studied their faces, the time on the cafe clock, the receipt printer, every witness. My coffee foam leaf wilted, but I sipped it anyway. "Still tastes like coffee," I murmured. Nico rushed in moments later, hoodie half-zipped, cheeks pink from running. "Sorry I'm late," he said, hugging me quick. "You okay, Grandma?" "I'm fine, baby. Sit and eat something." I slid him a beignet. "Feed a worry before you speak on it." His eyes darted toward Cressida, who waved like a parade queen. He shrank in his seat. I touched his hand lightly. "Ignore the noise," I said. We chatted about school, choir practice, anything ordinary. But I could feel his mind racing under the small talk. When her group stepped outside for a call, he leaned in. "Grandma, Mom says you're forgetting things." The words landed like cold rain. "She says you shouldn't sign stuff alone. Dad's worried too." He showed me his phone, a shared calendar. Guardianship consult, next week. I felt my pulse, slow instead of rise. "They're planning something," he whispered. "But you're fine. You helped me with essays." I smiled sadly. Memory and dignity aren't a debate team. Baby, I took a napkin and wrote 3 small rules. 1, keep copies of anything they hand you. 2, save screenshots somewhere only you can access. 3, never lie, but never volunteer. He nodded hard. "If anyone asks, you study with me on Tuesdays." "That's true." I tapped the table. "Truth is a shield." When they returned, Cressida's voice had that syrupy tone. "We'll take Grandma home. Langston's meeting me later." I smiled. "I'll walk. It's a pretty day, and I need my steps." I paid cash, asked for a printed receipt, folded it into my purse log. At the door, I hugged Nico. "You did right, sweetheart." His voice wavered. "I'm scared, Grandma," I whispered back. "Fear's just proof you care enough to act." Outside, sunlight hit the pavement like new resolve. My phone buzzed. Cressida's Instagram story showed latte art captioned, "Some folks never learn etiquette." I chuckled. "You just keep teaching me lessons, don't you?" Another ping. Langston's text. "Mom, quick thing. Cress wants to stop by tonight with routine forms." I stopped walking. The magnolia leaves rustled overhead. I opened my planner and wrote down the time, the message, and one quiet note. Never sign when rushed. Then I called Maria. "If you're free at 7, I said, bring your red pen. We've got homework." I spent the afternoon readying the house the way my mother taught me. Lights warm, counters clear, kettle steady on low. Every surface had a purpose. A manila envelope of key papers sat sealed on the buffet. My legal pad open to a fresh page, date and time already written. "Company changes manners," I whispered to myself, straightening the dining chairs. "If it isn't in writing, it isn't real." I rehearsed the lines I'd need if the night turned sharp. "We'll read together." No rush. I signed nothing tired. Henri's will went back into the safe, but I left a 1-page summary out where it could be seen. Innocent bait. Langston's text arrived. "On our way." "Routine forms," I answered. "Tea will be hot." Simple words, neutral tone. Cressida came through the door first, voice honeyed but tight. "Hi, Mom, I brought you some vitamin organizers. Helps keep things easy." She began labeling my pantry with sticky notes. For Mom, supervised use. Ask first. I let her have the performance while I slid the mail tray back to its place. We're just streamlining, she said. Smoothing her hair like that made it professional. I noted the word streamlining in my pad. Nico lingered behind her, pretending to scroll his phone, his eyes checking mine for reassurance. I gave him a small nod. Then came the forms. 3 packets, crisp and stapled. Just updates, Cressida said brightly. Emergency contact info. Wellness authorization, storm prep stuff. She could have sold sand in the desert with that tone. I reached for the last page first. Years in church committees taught me. What matters hides in the back. Buried in fine print sat a paragraph about durable powers. Cloaked as safety protocol. My pen circled the header. Printer's out of ink, she murmured when I asked for a copy. I set the tea timer to 3 minutes. It's ticking my small metronome for sanity. We'll wait for daylight to read it right, I said, smiling as the kettle hissed, Langston's patience frayed. Mom, it's just precaution. Then precaution can wait till noon, I replied. I wrote missing appendix on a blank page and stapled it to the packet. No signature, only my initials and date. The tea timer dinged like a church bell ending debate. I poured, handed them cups, and let silence stretch until Cressida's jaw relaxed. Then the doorbell rang. Maria Cortez stepped in carrying her old canvas brief and that lawyer's calm that commands rooms. Evening. Everyone, she said, settling beside me. Mind if I take a quick look? She scanned the last pages, eyes sharp as sewing needles. Interesting phrasing here, she said softly. Cressida's smile faltered. Maria called her paralegal on speaker, verifying a clause word for word. Do not sign, came the verdict. The room chilled. If urgency is real, I said gently, it respects a notary. Langston shifted, caught between us. We're trying to help. He said, help looks like clarity, baby, I answered. Cressida bristled. You're making this hostile. Maria leaned forward. Clarity isn't hostility. Signatures are final. I reminded them of my hurricane plans, the generator list taped behind the door. I'd been managing my own safety since before they could spell FEMA. Tomorrow, noon at the bank, I said. Bring clean copies. I gathered the cups and carried them to the sink. Small gesture. Large message. After they left, Maria stayed to help file. We scanned each document, dated them, uploaded to her secure cloud. 2-step protection, she said. You keep originals. I keep twins. She urged me to ask the notary for a capacity statement tomorrow. Legal armor before the storm. Get a second set of eyes, I told her. Pride's expensive, paper's cheap. We synced calendars, then she hugged me tight. When the house quieted, I found an envelope slid under the door. No return address, only a faint postmark. Inside lay a photocopy of one clause from tonight's packet, with a sticky note. Check page 7 tomorrow. The handwriting was unfamiliar. My phone pinged, a message from someone named Seraphine Vaughn. If you're Odessa, I filmed something at Belle Rue you should see. I locked the door, placed the envelope inside my log, and switched off the lights. The kettle began to hum again, low and steady. We'll let the daylight testify, I said to the still air, and wrote the time down beside my name. By morning, the envelope from last night sat on my desk like a quiet dare. I slid it open again and reread the highlighted line on page 7. Ongoing management authority. My pen underlined it twice. That word, ongoing, was. It wasn't for emergencies, it was for ownership. I packed my flat file with colored tabs, copies of Henri's will, my ID, and the paper log that had become my second heart. I dressed in navy slacks, low shoes, and a calm face. No one argues well in pinched toes, I muttered, pouring coffee into a travel cup. Maria texted, on my way, red pen ready. I smiled. In daylight, paper tells the truth. The bank lobby smelled of carpet cleaner and faint perfume. I chose the glass conference room for its view. No secrets behind glass. The notary, a pleasant young woman named Fiona, offered tea. No, thank you, I said. Just daylight. Langston and Cressida arrived moments later, carrying a USB drive and polished smiles. I seated them on the same side. Easier to read together, I said, arranging chairs. I laid my rules card on the table. Signature pages first, no signing without copies. Questions through the notary. Fiona nodded, impressed. That's very organized, Miss Varnell. Organization keeps you from being organized by others, I replied. Cressida slid the clean copies forward. Maria asked for the PDF via email to the branch account. The teller printed the file's properties sheet, and the truth blinked in 12-point font, created 1142 E.M. Author C. Vaughn. Template DPOA _ extended _ V. E4. I turned the page slowly. That's after our visit ended, I said. Langston blinked, confusion creeping across his face. Cressida stammered. Just a version update. An update to what? Maria asked softly. Fiona read aloud the buried clause giving power over financial accounts, litigation, and real property. Silence tightened the air. That's not emergency language, Maria noted. Fiona cleared her throat. I can't notarize this. The sound of the stamp staying in her drawer was music. I requested a capacity letter from the branch manager confirming I understood the documents and declined to sign. She printed, signed, and slid it across. I initialed, dated, and placed it neatly in my clear sleeve. Paper is patient, I said quietly. Langston whispered, Mom, this is getting dramatic. I met his eyes. It got dramatic when pages changed at midnight. Outside the conference room. Cressida shifted to her soft voice act. We were just scared. Hurricane season, medical issues. I stopped her gently. Fear doesn't need ownership of my name. I handed her a routing sheet. All future forms to go through Maria's office. I don't do signatures hungry, I added. Lunch first, then life. Fiona thanked me for the professionalism. I thanked her for daylight. Azaleas were blooming as I walked toward Magazine Street. The breeze tasted of spring and old brass bands warming up somewhere down the block. My phone buzzed. A message from Seraphine Vaughn. Attached was the Belle Rue video. Cressida speaking French, mocking me. Words guardianship and grandmère ringing clear. I forwarded it to Maria, saving a copy to my cloud. They wanted proof, I said out loud. Now we have it. At Coliseum Square Park, the HOA brunch was already underway. Folding tables under the gazebo, pitchers of sweet tea, women in linen laughing too loud. Cressida saw me and froze mid-laugh. I approached, calm as Sunday morning. When she slipped into French again. Influence année, she said, elder influence. I waited until she finished. Then, in the same polished accent, I replied. Ce que vous avez proposé n'était pas un secours, c'était une prise de contrôle. What you proposed wasn't help, it was a takeover. The silence that followed could have cracked glass. She speaks French, someone whispered. I switched to English. Good fences make good neighbors, I said, holding up the bank letter. And good paperwork makes good families. The HOA president smiled awkwardly. Well said, Miss Varnell. A neighbor murmured. My mama fought that guardianship mess, too. I nodded, logging the moment in my mind. Langston stood pale, staring at the ground. I touched his arm. Storms we can face together. I told him, just not my signature without me. Cressida's voice trembled. We'll regroup. To clarity, I said softly. Later, with a to-go box of jambalaya in hand. I checked my phone, a new email, Vaughn and Alder PR, Elder Communications Crisis. Proposed action plan. My name sat bold in the preview beside the words, Narrative Management. I forwarded it to Maria. They're writing fiction. We'll write records. I tucked the phone away as the brass music started across the park. If they want headlines, I whispered, they'll get declarations. I closed my folder and smiled to the air. Next stop, Discovery. ChatGPT Denoy. Bandang cho fan hoi vamot fien ban moi kua ChatGPT. Ban thich fan hoi now hon. Ko the mat mot luk detai kak fan hoi. ChatGPT. Fan hoi. 1. Chapter 5, The Family PR War. I was stirring oatmeal when my phone lit up like a storm. Texts poured in. "You okay, Miss O?" "Saw Channel 9, praying for you." My stomach dropped. The news app opened to a headline that felt unreal. "Community figure caught in family guardianship dispute." There was my name, my photo from the HOA brunch, and a smooth voiceover describing Cressida as a concerned caregiver navigating a difficult elder transition. They even played a clip from that brunch, cut, spliced, and mistranslated. My voice, calm that day, now sounded confused under their captions. "When folks can't win on facts," I whispered, turning off the stove. "They hire cameras." I sat at my table, opened my paper log, and wrote, 8:14 a.f. WLA Channel 9, guardianship piece aired. The video credited Vaughn and Alder PR, the same firm from the email I'd forwarded to Maria. I replayed the segment, this time noting timestamps, anchor names, and every false phrase. There was Langston. Voice steady, saying, "We're just ensuring Mom's safety." The tone wasn't his, it was rehearsed. I printed screenshots, stapled them to the log, and called Maria. "It's public now." Her voice came crisp. "Then we go public. Your way, not theirs." By noon, word had spread through the church network. My friends at Bible study had fire in their eyes. "They picked the wrong grandma," Sister Laverne declared, slapping her Bible shut. Deacon Amos leaned forward. "You tell your side on community radio. No spin, just truth." I took a deep breath. I wasn't built for drama, but I was raised for dignity. Together, we outlined a plan. Simple, transparent, factual. I'd bring my binder, the bank letter, and the receipts. "I'm not confused," I practiced out loud. "I'm consistent. Love doesn't sign behind your back." We rehearsed at the church hall that evening. Seraphine set up her camera for YouTube. I spoke once. Straight through, no edits. "I'm Odessa Varnell," I began. "I'm not seeking sympathy. I'm setting the record." The elders clapped after the first take, some teary-eyed, others angry on my behalf. "You go, Miss O," one called. The next morning, I was ready for the mic. The radio booth smelled of dust and coffee. The red light blinked on. Silence first, I told myself. Then truth. My voice carried steady. I told the story from the dinner to the bank visit, leaving out no facts, adding no venom. "Transparency is grace," I said into the mic. "Secrecy breeds paperwork." Maria joined me for the legal context, explaining guardianship abuse in plain terms. When I read the bank's capacity letter, the host leaned forward, eyes wide. I repeated the French phrase that had gone viral, giving it context. The phone lines flooded with calls, elders sharing their own stories of forged papers, helpful relatives, and quiet battles. Within hours, the clip spread online. # grandma got receipts trended locally. Even Nico sent me a screenshot from his class group chat, grinning. "You're famous, Grandma." "No," I told him. "I'm factual." Cressida's firm released a vague statement. "We support the dignity of all parties." Langston texted, "We need to talk offline." I typed back, "In writing, baby." Always in writing. Maria emailed me a draft cease and desist for unauthorized footage. I signed it with a steady hand. "I never wanted fame," I said to her later. "Just fairness. But sometimes, fairness likes a spotlight." That night, numb, I sat at my desk labeling a new binder. Public Record 2025. Every page filed, every screenshot numbered. Maria sent updates. Possible defamation claim, invasion of privacy angle. I sipped tea, feeling that strange mix of exhaustion and power. "Don't fight loud," I murmured to myself. "Fight in ink." The kettle clicked off behind me as the clock neared 9. Then my inbox pinged. Subject line, "Urgent, your deed record." Attached was a PDF of a property transfer filed just yesterday. My address, my name, a digital signature I'd never made. I zoomed in, heart pounding. "That ain't my hand," I said softly. The room went still except for the ticking clock. I reached for my paper log, turned to a fresh page, and wrote the date. "Tomorrow," I whispered. "We move from press to prosecution." At sunrise, I brewed chicory coffee strong enough to wake the dead and printed the so-called deed transfer file. The forged signature glared back at me like an insult in ink. I clipped it into my public record binder, labeled Exhibit B, and dated it in red pen. By 7, my dining table looked like a miniature war room. Receipts, affidavits, and a neat stack of index tabs, A through G. Henri always said, when you're walking into bureaucracy, wear shoes that don't squeak and carry copies. I packed 2 IDs, a flash drive, and my affidavit template. Government runs slow, so I brought patience and a sandwich. The recorder's office smelled of toner and air conditioning that never slept. I met Maria under the marble archway. She carried her brief like a weapon. "Let's freeze that lie," she said. Inside, I handed the intake clerk my papers. "Search parcel under Varnell." He frowned at the monitor, then said, "There's a pending submission not finalized yet." The clock on the wall read 9:47 a.m. I wrote it down. "Put a hold on it," I told him. "Pending affidavit of non-signature." He called a supervisor, who produced a form thicker than a hymnal. I filled every blank carefully, line by line, no drama, just record. When he stamped it, "Hold," I whispered, and the paper paused. Then came the twist. Maria requested the audit trail, and the clerk printed a page showing the submitter, c.Vaughn@belarustrust.com. I didn't need a detective to see it. Cressida's signature of arrogance, hiding behind her maiden alias. The timestamp read 11:58 p.m. I felt my pulse quicken. Not from fear, but fury. "The night she posted that brunch photo," I murmured. I compared the fake signature with my true deed copy. Different loops, different ink pressure, an amateur imitation. At the notary window, I signed my affidavit of non-signature, sworn and sealed. "If the paper says it's me," I said to Maria, "but my hand never touched it, then the paper's lying." We walked straight to the Civil District Court. The injunction desk clerk raised an eyebrow when she saw our exhibit stack. "Temporary restraining order," Maria said. "Fraud in progress." We drafted the petition right there. Facts clean. No adjectives, just evidence. The duty judge, a woman with kind eyes and no patience for nonsense, read fast. "You've got good documentation," she said, signing the TRO on the spot. The order froze every transaction under my name, preserved all communications, and set a hearing in 10 days. "You'll need service today," she added. The sheriff's deputy took the sealed packets and grinned. "Gallery event tonight? Guess I'll wear my good shoes." By evening. I stood outside that Prytania Street gallery under the magnolias, the city's jazz bleeding through the air. I didn't need to be inside. I just needed the papers to land. The deputy slipped through the doors, came out 8 minutes later, tapping his chest cam. "Served both parties, ma'am." Through the window, I saw Cressida freeze mid-toast, Langston's hand on her arm. The donors whispered. I logged the exact time, 7:42 p.m., and wrote the badge number beside it. My phone buzzed. "Mom, what are you doing?" I texted back. "Making the record you should have made." Minutes later, he called from the alley, voice taut. "You didn't have to humiliate us like that." "I didn't," I said calmly. "The paperwork did. Families aren't brands. Baby. Mothers aren't logos." I offered a church-mediated session with lawyers present. He hesitated. Said he'd think about it. I replied, "No more thinking in whispers. Put it in writing." That night, the gallery posted private preview. Press closed. My church's radio uploaded a segment titled, "How to Freeze Bad Paper." Maria sent confirmation. Compliance teams at Vaughan and Alder had acknowledged the injunction. I drafted a public note of my own. I will let the court record speak. Silence can be the sharpest sentence. Around 9, 2 new emails arrived. One from the district attorney's elder fraud unit requesting an interview. The other, from an unknown sender, a zipped folder named crisis_plan_Granmere. I forwarded both to Maria, logging every click. Then I sat back, tea in hand, and whispered, "If they wanted headlines, they'll get evidence." Tomorrow, I'd walk from press to prosecution, steady as scripture. The next morning, I ironed my blouse and whispered a prayer for strength. Maria drove us to the Orleans Parish DA building, the binder heavy between us like a living thing. Inside the elder fraud unit, fluorescent lights hummed as I laid out my exhibits: TRO, recorder hold, audit trail, affidavit, and that cursed Belle Rue transcript. The investigator, a young woman with sharp eyes and a gentle voice, explained the thresholds for elder exploitation. We look for coercion, digital tampering, financial intent, she said. I nodded and told my story plainly. Paper and prayer and patience. No dramatics. They recorded my statement, noting the hours, the evidence, the harm. Then came the surprise. A vendor analyst had reached out overnight about a client account override tied to my parcel queue. I glanced at Maria. She whispered, "That's the crack we needed." The investigator played a voicemail from that analyst, a quiet, nervous man, confessing that a manual signature image was inserted to rush the deed upload. They said it was urgent. He said, the DA paused the tape. "We'll subpoena everything," she promised. She showed us a redacted header. Cressida. Vaughn at belarustrust.com. My stomach turned. That name again, so polished it sliced. The whistleblower wanted immunity in exchange for screenshots of the admin console. "He's tired of cleaning up someone else's lies," Maria murmured. We left with a case number and a strange calm. "Seraphine," I texted. "Hold the church hall for 3 o'clock. We need holy ground today." The St. Augustine Hall smelled of lemon polish and candles. Deacon Jules arranged the mediation table. Water, not coffee, to keep hands steady. Langston arrived early. Face drawn, lawyer in tow. Cressida's seat sat empty. "She'll join remotely," the young attorney said, checking his phone. I began. "My needs are simple. Title security, written apology to church elders, and full withdrawal of claims to my trust." Langston's counsel offered a family misunderstanding statement. I refused it. "You can misunderstand a schedule," I said, "not a signature." The deacon ended round one with a prayer and a sigh. Cressida's face finally appeared on a screen. Filtered lighting. Perfect hair. A background that looked borrowed from a magazine spread. "Odessa," she began. "We all regret the confusion," I interrupted gently. "Who told you I wouldn't notice?" I slid the audit trail across the table. Her PR counsel cut in. "No comment," Maria replied evenly. "Preservation orders active. Silence is noted." The air thickened. "Truth or silence?" I said, "not spin." Minutes later, my phone buzzed. Breaking news. A major donor to the Prytania Gallery had paused all pledges, citing respect for elder property rights. Within the hour, blogs ran headlines about the injunction. Cressida's Instagram post from last night vanished. Sponsors demanded written ethics statements. Langston texted, "This is ruining everything." I wrote back, "Integrity isn't a ruin. It's the foundation." Maria drafted an addendum highlighting the contradictions in their public posts. Meanwhile, Seraphine whispered that the church quilting circle wanted me to speak Sunday. How to keep receipts without losing peace. I laughed softly. They always know when to hand you the microphone. Outside, under the live oaks, Langston lingered, shame shadowing his face. "She said it had helped the family brand," he murmured. "You signed what she sent," I reminded him. "If you didn't read it, that's negligence. If you did, that's betrayal." His eyes glistened. "Can we just stop this?" I softened. "Only with the truth. Baby. Lies can't end lies." He nodded weakly. I hugged him once. Just a mother's touch. Not forgiveness yet. That evening, Maria filed expedited discovery motions and froze every vulnerable account I had. Seraphine checked my Wi-Fi routers. Found no hidden access. "You're airtight now," she said. A neighbor dropped off a casserole with a note. "We see you, Miss Farnell." I smiled, feeling both exposed and protected. At 9, an encrypted email arrived. Subject line, "I'm sorry." It was from Langston. Attached, a voice memo. He confessed that Cressida held a duplicate vendor token and a folder labeled Grandmère Legacy Plan. "If I bring it to the DA," he asked, voice breaking, "will you stand beside me, just once, as my mother?" I stared at the ceiling, whispered, "Bring the key, son." Then I pressed play, and the first name he spoke wasn't hers. The courtroom smelled faintly of lemon polish and old books. I sat beside Maria, binder on my lap, every page marked with the story of how we got here. The judge reviewed our filings, vendor logs, the audit trail, the forged signature chain, and nodded. PR counsel tried to spin elder confusion, but Maria's calm voice sliced through. Your Honor, the metadata speaks louder than any narrative. When she read the timestamp aloud, the room went still. The gavel hit once. Permanent injunction granted. My title, trust, and image rights were secure again. Respect is a receipt, I said, clear enough for the stenographer to catch. Even the clerk smiled. At the DA's office later, I listened to Langston's voice memo replayed on the investigator's speaker. Hearing my son name names hurt more than I expected. He described the PR operations lead authorizing a duplicate admin token and CCing Cressida. The investigator asked him to sign a cooperation proffer. He did. Hand trembling, Maria leaned forward. No NDAs about facts, she said. The DA nodded, adding that restorative actions would come before sentencing. I looked at my boy. His shoulders slumped. Truth buys you a future, I whispered. Lies waste it. He wiped his eyes and nodded like a child learning to stand again. By midday, the DA received a green light from a supervising attorney. A grand jury pre-clear, likely 2 felony counts if plea talks failed. The PR counsel blinked fast when told Cressida's plea offer would include restitution and public correction. The firm's operations lead, cornered by digital proof, sent a confession email. Rush indexing, signature image injected, the DA printed it for the record. For once, bureaucracy served justice. I exhaled deeply, not in victory but in relief. Some truths don't roar, they simply stop running. That afternoon, the gallery's social feed lit up. Public statement at 5. I didn't plan to speak, just a witness. I wore a navy dress, church pearls, and my grandmother's ring. Gravitas, not spectacle, Maria reminded me. The live stream began. Cressida read a prepared apology, voice tight. I authorized access and mischaracterized Miss Varnell's capacity, she said. It was wrong, Maria nodded to the AV tech. Split-screen proof appeared. Admin logs, timestamps, my forged signature highlighted in red. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Langston stepped to the mic. I signed things I didn't read. He confessed. My mother taught me better. And the chat filled with hearts and the phrase #respect the matriarch. Sponsors reinstated partial funding, but this time with a new clause. Elder respect required in every contract. The tide turned quietly, beautifully. By evening, we finalized the settlement, my title confirmed. Image rights protected. Restitution allocated to elder workshops at St. Augustine. Langston moved into a small rental nearby. I gave him a calendar, dinners only after hearings, one boundary at a time. I launched a micro-grant called Receipts and Respect Fund, offering free notary services for seniors. Maria and I toasted with cafe au lait on the church steps. You turn pain into precedent, she said. I smiled. Paper makes a fine sword. At home. I walked through sunlit rooms, touching the piano keys, the quilt draped over my chair. The quilting circle had stitched a small square just for me, a tiny embroidered receipt reading "Respect Kept." The house felt whole again. Langston appeared at dusk, hesitant. We didn't hug. We simply nodded. Still your mama, I said softly. Always, he replied. The phone buzzed with new voicemails from seniors across town. Miss Varnell, can you help me freeze my credit? I opened a fresh binder and labeled it Neighbors. The pen felt light in my hand. Justice. I realized, isn't a thunderclap, it's maintenance. The quiet crown rests easy when it's earned. As I closed the binder, marked Neighbors. A soft knock echoed from my front door, through the window. I saw a man in a dark suit holding a folder stamped Federal Subpoena. My heart steadied. Justice wasn't done yet. Someone else's story was about to begin. What's in that folder?